I'm actually singing a note, but I'm just pushing it to distortion. I also do a death growl, which is, a false chord, and I do a screech, which is also a false chord. But my main vocal style is taking a clean note and pushing it to distortion.
Hey everyone, welcome back to one of the most exciting episodes of the story behind the Scream so far. We're sitting here with Robb Flynn from Machine Head. And Robb, thank you so much for joining us, for taking the time. The first question we always ask the vocalist we're sitting with is, how are you doing? And more importantly, how is your voice doing? Because you've played quite a lot of shows. There's another show today and there's more to come. How are you doing? How's your voice?
My voice is good. I've been out for about 6 weeks now. This last part has been about a month, and this is the last 2 shows. So today, I had a show yesterday, show today, and then a flight date tomorrow to France. And so, I'm doing good. Slept on the bus really good. So that's generally what helps a lot, is getting some good sleep. But yeah, feeling strong.
Are you ready to sing these words? Are you ready? Oh, baby.
Robb, Machine Head is existing over 30 years already. You played in bands before, but can you remember the very first time you came in contact with harsh vocals, with screaming?
Harsh vocals. Is Ozzy considered harsh? I don't know. Black Sabbath was probably Black Sabbath was probably like the first band where I was like, holy shit, that's scary and sounded heavy and he had a pretty high range. Yeah. So I'm a baritone, so it's a lower range. So it was always a struggle for me to kind of get that. So when, dudes like Hetfield started coming around, bands like Possessed or death metal bands, I definitely latched on to that because I was like, oh, that's my range. I can do that. I could never do the Tom Araya, all the crazy high Slayer stuff, but the Hetfield thing was a little more in my wheelhouse. And so, it was very, very much inspiring to me.
Super nice. Really awesome.
All right. Next question would be what then made you try harsh vocals yourself?
Well, I was in the first 2 bands that I was in 2 thrash bands, one called Forbidden and one called Vio-lence. And I was just playing guitar, but then I was doing backing vocals. So we had kind of hardcore gang vocals. And so I was singing heavy like that at that point. And I'd always sang, even as a kid, I always enjoyed being on stage. I always was doing, the school plays or school not musicals, but they'd have contests where you'd sing a popular song of the day or whatever, and I was always entering it. I was pretty shy as a kid, and that was kind of my way of expressing myself. And so once I started doing the gang vocals in Vio-lence, at some point, I always loved singing. I was always singing. I was like, you know what, I can do this shit. And I'm just going to start my own band and I'm going to be the singer and then sing harsh, And so I started doing it. And I think, looking back now, when I listen to my first album, I didn't have a lot of confidence as a singer. I did some clean singing, but it was all very low. It was mostly heavy vocals. And at the time I was playing with death metal bands and hardcore bands. And so singing wasn't it was, it was there, but it was it was cooler to be heavy. And so I just kind of focused on that. And then just over time, I just kind of learned wow, I can actually do more singing. I can do kind of a bunch of stuff. I could do death metal stuff. I can do high cleans, and it was pretty cool learning experience along the way.
Super nice. Eric says it always very nicely. He says, screaming is fantastic, but learning screaming sometimes really sucks. And we are in a luxurious situation that there are tons of fucking YouTube tutorials out there, and we have so much knowledge. You didn't have to. Yeah, but you didn't have them back then. How was it for you to learn them? Maybe did you sometimes harm yourself? What was the experience you took in the development back then, learning these vocals?
I mean, there wasn't. Like I would just ask my friends, and I would just go on stage and just sing. Like I would just like sing as heavy as I could, and I think especially from rehearsing, we did rehearse a lot back then. Like we always wanted to rehearse. We were rehearsing like 4 times a week, and then doing shows probably 2 times a month, or sometimes more, and just kind of found my style. I was friends with the guys from Biohazard at the time, and Billy from Biohazard had taken vocal lessons, and he gave me the cassette tape of his warm up. He's like, this is a cassette tape of the warm up, and recorded it. And he's like, dude, just do this before like 20 minutes before the show, and like this will help you a lot. And just whatever that little bit of kind of getting going, it really kind of set me on my path. And then, funny enough, I go on tour, and I'm on a death metal tour, right? I'm opening for Napalm Death and Obituary. This is my first tour, and I'm like, I don't need to warm up. That's for pussy. That's for pussies. Like fucking, like I'm on a death metal tour. Like I'm not gonna do that shit. And because I was like, if I lose my singing voice, it won't matter, right? Like I'm on a death metal tour. If I lose my singing voice, but what happened is I lost my heavy voice. And all I had was my singing voice. And I was like, oh, this ain't going to work. Like about a week into the tour, I got back into the vocal warm up, the cassette vocal warm up that Billy from Biohazard had given me. And from that point on, like I swear by it,
This is extremely interesting. I think Eric has already.
Yeah. So you lost your harsh voice, but not your clean voice.
Not my clean singing voice, which does me no good on a death metal tour opening for Napalm Death and Obituary.
Yeah, but usually it's a clean voice that goes in like the harsh stuff that still stays.
It tripped me out. Like it really tripped me out. And I remember the last show we were playing in Corona, California, and it was like a gnarly fucking crowd, like all like fucking Cholo Vato dudes and hardcore kids. And I'm like barely croaking out vocals, and I'm like, this is not going to work. Like I need to be able to have my heavy voice. And so, like I said, from that point on, like I just, and there was, looking back, it was kind of like stupid that I even stopped doing the vocal warm up. Like why? Like who cares? Like from that point on, I've done it,
Was pain and like hoarseness and stuff, was it something you experienced in the early days and years?
Not really, not so much pain, but like, I mean, like I said, like my voice it just disappeared. Like nothing was coming out. And so getting back into the routine, it was fine. Like it came back, and then it was there again. And,
Society lost identity, paid us till we die. Life is different, race, all that comes away, caught in like a everybody sing.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time by now. Can you maybe explain us a little bit in more technical terms what it is that you're doing with your harsh vocals?
I mean, I've taken in the last 10 years, I've taken more lessons for vocal lessons than I've ever taken in my life. And some of it was for heavy voice. I always felt like like my heavy voice font, I used to drink too much, and that would kind of like fuck then I'd drink like 6 shots of vodka before I went on stage. and I was like, at the time I was just like, yeah, like that's what you do. You drink 6 shots of vodka and then have like 4 more shots on stage. And then I'd stop drinking after that, and so that was always in my mind. Like even if I drank, 10 shots of vodka, as soon as the show was over, if I had a show the next day, in my mind, that was the end. Like I can't drink anymore. I got to save my throat for the next day. But, as you learn, not drinking 10 shots of vodka is actually better for you than that. So, you know, taking a lot of like, you know, building diaphragm strength. You know, I ended up going to the same vocal coach that Billy from Biohazard went to. Like I did a 3-day session with him, and that really helped me a lot. You know, like really just kind of like form my brain. You know, I've taken vocal lessons from probably 7 different teachers at this point, and you learn a little bit every time, you know, like you learn something, you know, like you might not even always use their warm up. You might not even use everything they do, but there's a little nugget in there. And, you know, for me, the main thing that I've always done with my heavy vocals is, you know, because I'm unlike a lot of heavy singers right now, like even death metal singers or like fry scream singers, like I'm actually singing a note, but I'm just pushing it to distortion. You know, I also do a death growl, which is, you know, a false chord, and I do a screech, which is also a false chord. But my main vocal style is taking a clean note and pushing it to distortion. And if you listen to it, I'm actually singing notes. Yeah. You know, like you might not sound like it, but I'm actually singing a note, and it's just pushed so much of distortion. So it's always about kind of making between an O and an oo sound. So it's like kind of, oh, you know, I can't do it right now because I'm not warmed up, but it's like an oo, O sound. And you got to kind of shape your mouth to do that. And then screeches are a different, you know, vowel. And then other, you know, death metal's kind of almost like I don't know, my friend Eddie from Al Shall Perish calls it the death metal whistle. You know, he's like, when you look down and you get that, when you hear that whistle sound, it's like that's when you know, like you hit the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
Eric and I were actually really in love with Bone Scraper, your last song from the last album.
Awesome.
And we tried to cover it sometimes. And the thing is, we never really figured out, of course, like in the middle parts, you have the screams there. We try with our 4-chord screams to mimic them. But then in the refrain, for example, it sounds like clean singing, but it's not clean. You always have this grit on your voice. It's like go. It's not like go out.
Yeah,
it's not clean. And this is like, how is he doing this? How did you develop this? Like we can't go because when we try to add 4-chord and stuff on it, we always blow out the hours, especially when it parts like "Love is just a loaded gun." And this "Love is just a loaded gun."
Yeah, the gun.
And this
gun is it's actually a note. You know, like if you were looking at the fretboard, it's like the 3rd fret, right?
all right.
If that, I don't know if you play guitar, but that's how, like in my mind, that's how it works because I play guitar. Yeah. So like every note that I'm hitting on the vocals is like a note that I can also hit if I, you know, I don't, but if I needed to, you know, I could. Okay. Yes. And then you just push it to distortion. And it does take, you know, I could see why it is a challenge for you because it kind of takes almost like, for me, like say I took a month off from singing and then I went back into singing "Love is Just a Loaded Gun," I would need to like almost take about 2 weeks to get my vocal cords to do that distortion thing. Like it won't really ever do it at first, but like I do it a little bit, like 15 minutes here, you know, 20 minutes there, 40 minutes, then an hour and a half, and then I can do, you know, those things. And so it's almost like because I'm making it just vibrate super fast on a note, you know, and then you make the shape, and then that's what makes it happen. The shape is almost like what makes it happen, but you need to push it hard, and it, you know, it hurts at first, you know, like it does, you gotta kind of build up your, I call it my throat callus. Okay. Like, you know, like you get calluses on your fingers from playing guitar. It's like the same thing on your throat. You're building up a callus.
It's interesting, but is it like the thing that I did, like with this love is just loaded, is this a start and then you have to push more, or this gold?
You have to push more. See, push more. Right now, when you're doing it, your distortion is going really slow, right? It's going, it's almost like, brrr, right? You want it to go, you want it to be super fast, and that's what makes it sound like that grit, you know, that fast grit where it's going like really fast. Okay. So it's almost like you're working out those muscles and you need to make them go fast, and that's how you get that sound. You know,
and is it
like if you haven't worked out for a month, right? Yeah. And then you could go do a shit ton of like bench presses, you're fucked for the next couple of days. But if you get back into the routine, you know, you're getting stronger and faster, and that's kind of the same premise.
And is it important for that technique to be loud, or is it like like normal.
It's very loud.
Okay.
You know, I'd almost venture that my clean singing is a little bit louder than my heavy voice.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a different thing. It's just a different, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's just some, like, I'm self-taught, you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of stumbled into my style. Like, I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing, and I didn't have any lessons to show me. And like I said, I had a cassette tape that I would warm up to, and I eventually just kind of found my zone, and I didn't sound like I didn't want to sound like anybody. And so like once I found that zone, I just kind of, that became my thing, you know?
Super nice.
Yeah.
Eric is
Yeah, I have another question about your vocals, but I would say let's go back into that a little bit later. For now, I want to I want to introduce a guest into this interview, right? For the long-term fans of the channel, you've seen him before. It's the legendary YØUR, and yeah, why don't you take over from here?
Hey,
Hi,
man.
Rob. It's a pleasure. It really is. So yeah, one question I have, like, you're doing music for quite a while now. You release a lot of albums. You play a lot of shows. And one thing that, although you had like different influences on your albums, once it was more melodic, sometimes it got harder, sometimes it got softer. There was one thing that kept it all together. That was your voice. How did you manage to keep it that steady? Like, it's still, if you're on the show, on the stage, like Davidian or stuff, it still sounds like the same, really the same. And if I take a look at other like vocalists, the voice changes over time a bit. Yours didn't that much.
I feel like it's changed a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I said though, like I think that once you kind of build up those muscles, like they just hold that thing. But you know, to my ear, it's changed a little bit, probably just because when I recorded my first album, like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, you know, like I'd never even taken a vocal lesson at that point. Like I just would get in the studio and just fucking roar, you know, like, and, you know, for me now, like I have a pretty, you know, first of all, like I do 4 vocal warm-ups before a show. So I do 3 clean vocal warm-ups, and then I do a heavy vocal warm-up for about like 20 minutes before the show. And the heavy vocal warm-up is basically just me going like, ooh, oh, you know, and I kind of start with that. Then I work in like E, and I'm just basically holding a note and kind of doing that and just trying to get that distortion happening, right? Like just trying to get the vocal folds to move super fast. And then, you know, you get on stage and, you know, to some degree, I think like, you know, and then I have beer. And that's a lot.
Beer always helps, yeah.
That's part of my vocal warm up because, you know, to me, it's rock and roll. You know, like I started out playing thrash metal. Like my very first shows that I ever played were like backyard parties, you know, living room party, like literally playing in my friend's living room and playing thrash metal, you know, and playing original songs, covering Slayer, covering Exodus, covering Metallica. And, you know, to me, like it always was around like drinking beer and playing music. And I still want to carry that spirit, you know, wherever we go, because that to me is what it's about. It's about fun, people moshing in a backyard, you know? And so to me, that's what I come from. And, you know, now if I'm playing a song like say Davidian, which I recorded 30 years ago at this point, you know, it's not like I'm not, you know, and, you know, don't take this the wrong way. Like I love the song Davidian and I'm super proud of the song Davidian, you know, like I'd rather be the dude who wrote Davidian than the dude who didn't write Davidian. You know what I mean? But like, I'm not excited to play it. Like to me, I'm trying, I know how much people love it and I want to execute it. Like that's my pride that I take in this. Yes. I want to play those fucking guitar parts fucking sick. Like I want to sing those vocals fucking sick. I want to nail every fucking note. I want to hit every fucking, you know, like just hard. I want it to be just as brutal and heavy. So me, that's where I take my pride and my focus. So you know, to answer your question, I feel like, you know, there might've been a time somewhere where, you know, I feel like I've always had that pride, but now I really like that to me is what I'm trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like I want people to just relive that moment or experience that moment for the first time the same way that I delivered it 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think Davidian had to be the example, of course. But of course, it's like more taking a look back on all the older albums you created. Would you say that the voice you use now or the technique you use now is the same you did back then? Or did you change your technique also for the older stuff?
I don't really,
because you said you learned a lot. Yeah,
I have learned a lot, but the older stuff was kind of like all in this like very like small registry, whereas now like it's like this is the registry, and it's like a lot more varied, and so it's not like I've changed it. It's just that it's the newer stuff has this kind of like bigger registry that I can cull from.
And you learn to keep your
it's like a lot of clean, you know, like I mean, like tonight we're doing a song called "Not Long for This World," which is off of the new record, and it's pretty much 100% clean vocals all the way through. Which, you know, in the Davidian days, like I would have been terrified. I wouldn't have done it. I would have been terrified to do it. Like everybody's gonna think I'm a pussy. Like what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like I'm playing like hardcore shows. I'm playing for death metal bands. Like it would have just not. But you know, I got more confidence. You know, we just wrote these songs that I really believe in, and like now we do it, and it's like, you know, it's just a different vibe, and I love that. Like I love that we can show these different colors in our music, and that our fans accept it. You know, like that they love it and they sing it back to us, and you know, it's pretty wild.
It still sounded like Machine Head.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Boom.
On the ashes of your head. It's all when it's fun to make some noise.
Before, and we talked about your technique, right? And also you talked now about like how things change. It was also a question I had, so it's already answered. But I wanted to listen to a lot of your discography. I haven't gone all the way through it, but there's one song. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But there's one song that stuck out. Like we just talked about your your singing with grit is a different technique than your false chord screams.
Okay.
Did you do this throat or subharmonic singing on Sail Into the Black? Because I listened to Sail Into the Black, the song, because I was listening to them like, holy shit, that guy has such great control of his false chords. Because like we do false chord screams, right? Standard. And we over time also learned how to do throat singing. But what you did there is much more finesse and needs a lot more control. Can you talk to us a little bit about that song?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. That's like I never get asked about that song, so I actually really appreciate that that you did ask that question. You know, that song, so it's about 25 different vocals. And so there's about 5 vocals that make up the low, 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 that one. And then there's harmonies, and then there's, you know, the kind of the Sail Into the Black part. And, you know, just when I was hearing it in my head, I just, you know, I always just imagined it almost like, you know, the Monks or whatever, like doing that kind of like super, I can't remember what it's called right now. I'm brain farting on what it's called, but
Mongolian throat singing?
Something like that. Yeah. And I just was like, the idea seemed really cool. And when we created it, I mean, it was a demo. Like that was just a demo that I made. And me and my friend recorded it super fast. I probably did that in like 15 minutes, you know, and then I just heard it back and I was like, that's it. Like, I don't need to record that again. It sounds amazing. So like, let's just use that on the record. And I do that a lot, you know, like, I don't know if that people talk about that a lot, but especially like, I think when you're recording vocals, you know, and it's sometimes when you're just writing music, you know, a lot of times, you record a demo, right? Like, and maybe you've had this, like, as you've discovered bands, and especially like underground metal, like they record the demo and the fucking demo is amazing, right? And then you hear the album and you're like, like what happened? Like something got lost along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that a lot of times that happens because when you're doing the demo, you don't really know what you're doing. Like you're kind of making it up as you go. And even if you played it a little bit or rehearsed it a little, you're still kind of figuring it out. And something in your brain, there's some, like not all the time, but there's a magic in there. There's a fucking magic that you get. And so I've made a point, like on my last 4 records, like we demo like on a high enough quality that like if I really feel like we captured it, that demo becomes the album. So I never re-record these things. Sometimes I do, but like, if I change lyrics or something primarily, but like if I capture this magic, you use that. And I think you can hear that. And I think you can feel that. Yeah. And I think that you can, like, people connect with that shit because you just, so many times, to use that song in particular, and even other songs off that record, like I was kind of going through like a dark period of time. Like I was kind of falling apart. And you, on a song like Sail Into the Black, like you can hear me falling apart on that song, like the way I'm singing, like my voice is cracking and it's like, I'm almost on the verge of crying, and you can hear that and you can feel that. I could have resung it and made it perfect. I could have resung it and made it smooth, but there was just this fucking emotion that I was like, that's the only version that it needs to be. Yeah. And I think that like, it's so easy to lose that nowadays because you can make everything perfect. You can auto-tune everything. You can edit everything. You can cut out microseconds of a song and cut out a crack. And sometimes in that, you lose the human element of it. And to me, so much of what I try and capture on stage, but also on record, is that human element of whatever I'm feeling: anger, depression, sadness, happiness, whatever, so that comes through. And I think as long as you keep that in mind when you're recording or when you're singing live, just remember that people can feel that shit. People can see that shit. Like they can, even if they close their eyes, they can fucking feel that shit, and hear it. And you always got to keep sight of that.
Yeah. Wow, thank you so much for the deep dive. That was so interesting. I have to re-listen to the song now with everything you told me. Yeah, but it was like, it came on and I'm like, whoa. Yeah, so it had that effect. Yeah,
right.
I'm just now super curious to hear, how is it for you then playing these songs live? Are there some songs that you even can't play because they're too emotional to you?
There's a couple songs that are too emotional that I can't touch. But for the most part, like if we start playing it like on tour, like as a routine, like I said, it no longer becomes about whether I enjoy it or whether, like my whole thing becomes about trying to reconnect with it and deliver it with the same, it's almost like my brain switches to like almost like an analytical mode. It's no longer about emotion. Like it's about like delivering it and, recreating it for the people who came to see me play live.
Circle pit bigger. I can't stand or take a containment. We could use a beer or two. Because it's a Saturday night in motherfucking summer breeze. Oh, somebody, anybody, everybody's crying.
When I was sitting here and listening to the conversation with Hans-Jörg and you, it was really interesting. You said like you're adding up the range and the techniques that you're able to do, and you also said that you're working with coaches now more than in the past. Is there still something where you're still these days working on, and do you want to say where you want to maybe still develop, where you want to get better and healthier?
Absolutely. I mean, like I haven't taken lessons for probably like 6 months, but I just kind of went on tour and I was like, I'm on tour now. But like I was taking, lessons, and, it's just like, it's like little details, like so many little, when you play guitar, it's like you're doing a million little micro details that nobody catches, and you don't even like realize you're doing it after a while, because it just becomes like a muscle memory. And it's just, like I said, I'm self-taught. I learned a shit ton of really bad habits, like, later on, early on in life. And now it's just kind of like trying to unlearn all those tiny little bad habits that just make you have, a stronger voice later on. Believe it or not, like one of the biggest things for like saving your voice on tour is not talking and doing interviews, because talking is like the worst thing you can do. But like, you got obviously you got to talk and you do it. But, sometimes your record company's like, all right, you're at Summer Breeze, let's do like 6 interviews. And I'm like, yeah, no, like we're not doing that. I'll do one with the Scream dudes, but that's it. You know what I mean? So.
You're the best. Now we feel a bit bad that 2 hours before the show we have an interview here.
No, we made sure we got the quiet interview corner where you don't have to yell to understand each other.
Awesome.
You were talking about it already, and like one question I wrote down is like you have a lot of years of experience, and we talked about how different the scene was when you started versus when we are starting now. How do you view this development now? Like we have social media, we have tutorials, we have coaches, we have courses, we have all of this stuff now. And we just also talked about rawness and realness, and we had a lot of debates now with other vocalists in the interviews, like what's better, the self-taught or way, like the old school way or the new school way with like coaches. I just want to know, like, how do you view how the metal vocal scene has evolved and changed, and what would you recommend people to start with?
I mean, I think there's so many killer metal vocalists out there, that just, took maybe what I kind of helped pioneer, and like Max Cavalera kind of helped pioneer, and just took it to like the fucking nth level, like, Will Ramos from Lorna Shore, Alex from Slaughtered Prevail. I mean, that shit's just like another level, and it's amazing. Like I can't do it, and I would never, I think it would be like kind of ridiculous, for me to try and do that, but I love it. I think it's fucking super sick and really impressive, cool shit. I also think that there's like actual singers out there who have taken it to another level in metal that just make it really interesting. And so, things change and things always change. And I think, we just kind of keep on doing our thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm just doing Machine Head and I'm just doing my style. And, I might be a little instrument. I'll try like some of those things. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't really do that. But every once in a while I'm like, oh, I can almost do this, like I can add that into the repertoire. I think it's always good to learn. I think it's always good to like, even just try it, like even just for fun, like, try and do a Will Ramos, Lorna Shore, thing, like just give it a shot and be like, fuck, that's insane,
Yeah, awesome.
It makes you respect it, it makes you respect, because it's easy to write it off, right? It's easy to just go, oh, that's just this or whatever. In my opinion, I think it's a lot harder to do, like I remember for a long time, and this is a kind of unrelated in a way, but in a way it is. I never thought that Ronnie James Dio was like this great singer. Like he was great, but like I always put like a Halford or a Dickinson kind of above him. And then one day I sang along to the Heaven and Hell record. Like I sang along and I tried to mimic the grit and do it and all of it. And I was like, holy shit, this is fucking hard. Like I was like, this is so much harder than I ever like realized, like to nail it and do it. And it was eye-opening. It was really eye-opening. And so I think like, as a singer, this is what I do for, for a living, but it's also what I do because I enjoy it. I think like, put on some other band's record and sing along to it, and like, you'll really be surprised, like what else is going out there. And like, it's, you earn a respect for it.
Yeah. I find it super interesting and also like really awesome.
I got to get going. Like we're going to be going on here kind of soon. So
yeah. Okay. To close it out, I really like the attitude you have with that you say so positive and open to learn new things, because you have every right to say like, I do my stuff, I do it this way, and that's it. So I really appreciate the attitude you bring towards still improving, still learning, and saying like, yeah, you took more lessons the last 10 years than you ever did before. And yeah, you have to go. You said it. Thank you so much for your time. This was maybe the most interesting interview we ever had. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's it.
Right on for having me, Scream, dude.
Fuck, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, have a great show. We'll be there. We'll be watching.
Fuck yeah.
All right.